You are standing in the produce aisle and you are doing math you did not agree to. The organic strawberries are $4 more than the conventional ones, and the organic label is making a promise you can feel in your chest before you can articulate it. Cleaner, safer, better for your kids. You have been making this calculation for years, maybe decades, and it has never once felt like a free choice. It has felt like a tax on being a responsible parent, a responsible person, someone who cares. $63 billion. That is what Americans spent on organic food in 2023, according to the Organic Trade Association. 6% of all food sales, up from under 1% in 1997. And the question this video is going to sit with, calmly, is whether the reasons most people pay that premium match what the evidence actually shows. Not whether organic is a scam. It is not. Not whether the people who buy it are foolish. They are not. But whether the specific belief driving most of those purchases, that organic food is meaningfully safer and more nutritious, holds up when you look at the research. Because the research exists. Quite a lot of it. And it says something more complicated and more interesting than either side of this argument usually admits. Let us start with the thing almost no one knows. Organic farming uses pesticides. Not reluctantly, not in emergencies, not as a last resort. Routinely. Hundreds of thousands of pounds per year across the United States. The USDA National Organic Program, established in 2002, defines organic as a production method. It certifies that no synthetic pesticides were used, but it permits pesticides derived from natural sources, and the distinction between natural and synthetic is a question of origin, not of safety. Copper sulfate is one of the most commonly used organic-approved fungicides. It has been sprayed on crops since the 1880s. The Environmental Protection Agency classifies it as a Class 1 toxin. That is the most dangerous acute toxicity category the EPA assigns, and unlike many synthetic pesticides, which break down in the environment over days or weeks, copper does not biodegrade. It accumulates in soil permanently. European vineyards that have used organic copper treatments for a century show soil copper concentrations that have crossed into levels damaging to the very plants they were meant to protect. The European Union restricted copper application to 4 kilograms per hectare per year in 2018, specifically because of this accumulation problem. Rotenone was another organic-approved pesticide, derived from tropical plants. It was permitted in U.S. organic farming until 2005. It was removed after research published in Nature Neuroscience in 2000 by Betabet and colleagues linked it to Parkinson's-like symptoms in animal models. A natural pesticide, causing neurological damage, approved for organic use for years before the evidence caught up. Spinosad, derived from a soil bacterium, is currently approved for organic farming. The EPA classifies it as highly toxic to bees on direct contact. Pyrethrin from chrysanthemum flowers is a broad-spectrum insecticide that kills beneficial insects, pollinators, predators of crop pests, as effectively as the pests it targets. Because it breaks down faster than synthetic alternatives, it must be applied more frequently, which in some cases increases total ecological exposure. A 2010 study in PLOS One by Balai and colleagues at the University of Guelph found that some organic-approved pesticides had broader ecological impacts than some synthetic alternatives, precisely because they required higher application rates or more frequent spraying to achieve equivalent pest control. The point is not that organic pesticides are worse. The point is that the word natural is doing work in your mind that the chemistry does not support. Toxicity is a function of the compound, the dose, the persistence, and the target organisms, not of whether the molecule was assembled by a plant or a chemist. This matters because of what you probably believed when you picked up those strawberries. If you have been buying organic for 10 or 15 or 20 years, you probably started around the time the movement went mainstream. Whole Foods expanding into your city, the organic section at your regular grocery store growing from a single shelf to an entire aisle. And the message, absorbed through packaging and marketing and the general cultural atmosphere, was clean. The word was never on the label. The USDA explicitly does not make health claims with the organic seal, but the entire visual language of organic branding communicated it. White space, green leaves, the absence of scary chemistry. The USDA National Organic Standards Board, when it finalized the organic rule in December 2000, explicitly stated that the certification was a production method label. It was never designed to be a health claim or a safety claim. The health perception was a marketing overlay, not a regulatory intent. But marketing is powerful. Consumer surveys consistently show that Americans buy organic primarily for health and safety reasons. Reduced pesticide exposure, superior nutrition. And this is where the largest study ever conducted on the question becomes essential. In 2012, researchers at Stanford University published a meta-analysis of 237 studies, 17 human studies, and 223 studies of nutrient and contaminant levels in foods, led by Crystal Smith-Spangler, published in the Annals of Internal Medicine. It remains the most comprehensive systematic review on the question of whether organic food is nutritionally superior or meaningfully safer than conventional food. The findings were clear. No consistent, clinically meaningful differences in vitamin or nutrient content between organic and conventional produce, meats, or dairy. Organic produce had a 30% lower risk of detectable pesticide residues, but conventional produce residues were already far below EPA safety thresholds. The one meaningful finding was that organic chicken and pork showed a 33% lower risk of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, which is a genuine public health concern. But it applies to meat, not to the produce aisle where most organic purchasing decisions happen. Smith-Spangler herself told Stanford Medicine News Center something worth hearing. She said that when they began the project, they expected to find evidence supporting organic superiority. They did not. 2 years later, a Newcastle University team led by Carlo Leifert published a counter-study in the British Journal of Nutrition. It found that organic crops had 18 to 69% higher concentrations of antioxidant polyphenols. This gets cited frequently as proof that organic is nutritionally better. Context matters. The study found higher concentrations of certain compounds. It did not demonstrate any clinical health benefit from those higher concentrations. The difference in antioxidants between organic and conventional versions of the same crop is smaller than the difference between two different crops grown the same way. A conventional blueberry has far more antioxidants than an organic potato, and the broader evidence on antioxidant supplementation is humbling. A 2007 meta-analysis in JAMA by Bielakovic and colleagues found that antioxidant supplements did not reduce mortality and in some cases increased it. More is not automatically better. That is not how nutrition works. Even Leifert acknowledged that the research does not show eating organic food will make you healthier. Now here is where the conversation usually breaks down, because the next question is about the pesticide residues on conventional produce. And this is where fear has outrun the data by a wide margin. The USDA Pesticide Data Program tests thousands of produce samples every year. In 2022, 99.5% of samples had residues below EPA tolerance levels. Not just below. Most were 100 to 1,000 times below the safety threshold. And those thresholds already incorporate a 100-fold safety factor, meaning the allowed residue level is set at 1/100th of the level that produces no adverse effects in animal studies. For children, the Food Quality Protection Act of 1996 often adds another 10-fold factor, making actual exposures 1,000 times below the no-effect level. Bruce Ames, the UC Berkeley biochemist who invented the Ames test for carcinogenicity, published research in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 1990 that reframed this entire conversation. Americans consume about 1,500 milligrams of natural pesticides per day, compounds that plants produce as their own chemical defense. That is roughly 10,000 times more than the 0 to 9 milligrams of synthetic pesticide residues consumed daily. A single cup of coffee contains more naturally occurring, potentially carcinogenic compounds by weight than all the synthetic pesticide residue you consume in a year of eating conventional produce. That does not mean pesticide residues are irrelevant. It means the scale of the concern has been profoundly distorted by marketing. You may have seen the Environmental Working Group's annual Dirty Dozen list, the 12 conventional produce items with the highest detected pesticide residues. The list drives significant consumer behavior, but toxicologists have criticized it sharply. Carl Winter at UC Davis, an extension toxicologist who has published extensively on this, has shown that the EWG's methodology conflates detectable with dangerous. These are entirely different scientific questions. A 2011 analysis in the Journal of Toxicology found that substituting organic versions of the Dirty Dozen for conventional would reduce an already negligible risk by a negligible additional amount. The most irresponsible version of this claim, and it circulates widely on social media from influencers and wellness accounts, is the framing that if you cannot afford organic, your family is being harmed. A 2012 analysis by Rice and colleagues in food and chemical toxicology demonstrated the opposite concern, that scaring lower-income families about conventional produce may lead them to eat fewer fruits and vegetables, which has clear, documented negative health consequences. The health benefit of eating produce, any produce, far outweighs any theoretical risk from residues at current levels. Pattern beats nutrient every time. And the pattern here is straightforward. Eating more fruits and vegetables improves health outcomes. The organic versus conventional distinction is not where the meaningful variation lives. But this is where I want to give organic its genuine due, because the story is not one-sided, and treating it as one-sided would be dishonest. The environmental argument for organic farming is real, documented, significant. A 2017 study in PLOS ONE by Laurie and colleagues found higher soil organic matter and greater soil microbial activity on organic farms. A 2014 study in the Journal of Applied Ecology by Tuck and colleagues found 30% more species on average on organic farmland. Organic farming eliminates synthetic nitrogen fertilizer production, which is energy intensive. It reduces synthetic pesticide runoff into waterways. These are genuine benefits. They are not trivial, but they are complicated. Organic farming produces 20 to 25% less food per acre on average, according to a 2012 analysis by DeBunking and colleagues in agricultural systems. Lower yields mean more land is needed for equivalent production. And land use change, converting forest or grassland to farmland, is the single largest driver of biodiversity loss globally, according to the 2019 IBIS Global Assessment. Organic tillage for weed control can increase soil erosion compared to no-till conventional systems, and that copper accumulation from organic fungicide use is a documented long-term soil health problem in grapes, apples, and potatoes. The environmental case is real, but it is not simple. It is not a binary where organic equals environmental virtue. Now, where does your money actually go? Organic food costs 20 to 100% more than conventional, depending on the product. You probably assumed most of that goes to the farmer. A USDA Economic Research Service analysis found that organic price premiums at the retail level averaged 47%, while farm gate premiums, what the farmer actually receives, averaged 29%. The gap is significant. Certification costs small farms between $750 and $2,000 annually, plus a substantial record-keeping burden. But the larger share of your premium is captured by the supply chain between the farm gate and your shopping cart. Someone in the middle is doing well on your good intentions. There is one genuine scientific debate I want to name because honesty requires it. Some researchers, including Philippe Grandjean at Harvard and Brenda Eskenazi at UC Berkeley, argue that current EPA safety thresholds may not adequately account for cocktail effects. What happens when you are exposed to multiple pesticides at sub-threshold levels simultaneously? Or for endocrine disruption at very low doses? Or for windows of developmental vulnerability in children? Others, including Winter at UC Davis and Ames at Berkeley, counter that the existing 100-fold to 1,000-fold safety factors already account for these concerns. This is a genuine, unresolved debate in regulatory toxicology. It is not a settled question, but it is a debate about regulatory adequacy, not about whether organic produce is nutritionally superior. Buying organic does not eliminate pesticide exposure. It changes which pesticides you are exposed to. A 2018 observational study from the French Nutrinet Santé cohort, published in JAMA Internal Medicine by Baudry and colleagues, found an association between organic food consumption and reduced cancer incidence, particularly non-Hodgkin lymphoma. This made headlines, but observational studies have a fundamental limitation here. People who buy organic also exercise more, smoke less, eat more fruits and vegetables overall, and have higher incomes. Untangling the organic label from the entire lifestyle pattern has not been accomplished. Causation has not been established. The diet book is not the same thing as the evidence, and in this case, the marketing is not the same thing as the label. The USDA organic seal certifies a production method. The marketing surrounding it has spent 2 decades communicating something the seal was never designed to claim. So what does this leave you with, standing in that produce aisle? It leaves you with a more honest set of choices. If you buy organic because you value the environmental benefits, soil health, biodiversity, reduced synthetic runoff, and you can afford the premium, that is a reasonable, evidence-supported decision. Those benefits are documented. If you have been buying organic because you believed it was meaningfully more nutritious or that conventional produce was dangerous, the weight of the evidence does not support that belief. The Stanford meta-analysis, the USDA Pesticide Data Program data, the EPA safety factor structure, they converge on the same conclusion. Conventional produce, washed and eaten, is safe at current residue levels by a wide margin. If you want to do the single most impactful thing for the environment with your food dollar, the evidence points somewhere unexpected. Roughly 30 to 40% of food in the United States is wasted. Reducing that waste, eating what you buy, planning meals, using your freezer has a larger environmental impact than switching from conventional to organic. That is not a guess. That is the conclusion of multiple analyses, including Project Drawdown's ranking of climate solutions. If you have specific health conditions, dietary concerns, or questions about what foods to prioritize for your particular situation, a registered dietitian, that is an RD or RDN, a credentialed, regulated professional, is the right person for individualized guidance. Not an Instagram nutritionist, not a podcast host selling supplements. The credential matters because the title nutritionist is often unregulated. Anyone can claim it. And if the food you grew up with, the food your grandmother cooked, the food that carries your family's history and your own pleasure, if someone on social media is telling you that food is wrong because it is not organic, there is a very high probability that the influencer's evidence base is thinner than your grandmother's recipe card. Food is culture before it is chemistry. The uncomfortable truth about the organic industry is not that it is a fraud. There are real farmers doing real work with genuine environmental commitments. The uncomfortable truth is that a $63 billion market has been built substantially on a misunderstanding. The belief that organic means no pesticides. The belief that conventional produce is dangerous. The belief that the premium is a health investment. The research, calmly reviewed, does not support those specific beliefs. Your money is yours. Your choices are yours. The evidence is a tool, not a verdict, but you deserve to make those choices with accurate information rather than with marketing dressed up as science. The next time you are in that aisle doing that math, you will know what the label actually means and what it does not. That is worth more than the premium. If you want the evidence-based version of nutrition questions, no supplement pitches, no diet prescriptions, no moralizing about your grocery cart, subscribe and bring your questions. What food have you been paying more for that you now want to look at differently? The comments are yours.